G'day folks, it's Phil from 15 Minute Guitar Practice here. Today we're going to look at some intermediate solo theory concepts. Now in the two previous videos that I've done, I started with some simple chord theory and then I moved on to some simple solo theory. And so what I'm doing today is building upon those two. And we're going to do some intermediate stuff. Now we're going to take it super slowly. And I picked a chord progression that's quite mellow, so we have the time to think about things as we go through this. So the chords I've picked are, we're going to do an E at the 5th string with its root on the 5th string. Then we're going to do a B minor with its root on the 6th string at the 7th fret of the E. Then we're going to do the A at the 5th fret of the bottom E string. And then go back to that E. So one bar of each, E, one bar of B minor, one bar of A, and back to one bar of E before the whole sequence repeats. Now, most early intermediate players, when faced with a chord progression like that, are going to ask the question, what scale can I play over that whole thing? That, I believe, is the wrong kind of question. Because there is a scale you can play over all of those, but it's a kind of one size fits all. And if you're new to soloing, that's okay for a little bit. But I mean, just a little bit of time for you just to get familiar with the ideas of soloing. But what happens is guitar players hold on to that idea because it's simple for them and they don't have to think about anything else. Oh, I know this one scale, I can put it over everything, so I'm good to go. Now that is what separates the men from the boys, or the basic players from the more sophisticated players, because the one-size-fits-all thing, because it's one-size-fits-all, it doesn't really fit in some places as well as it could. So really that's the wrong kind of question. The right kind of question, I believe, is what are the notes presented to me from each of the chords that I can use as a starting point for my note choice to play over those chords. Now, I was hoping to get that into some kind of snappy little soundbite, but it's come out a bit longer. But basically what it means is, what notes do the chords give you that you can play? Okay, you just need to match the notes of the chord with the melody you play. So if there's an E, okay, the question is, what are the notes in the chord that you could use? Well, the notes in the chord are this. So you could use any of those, all of them, or some of them, as a starting point, to solo over that E chord. Now, of course, when the chord changes to the B minor, the question becomes, what are the notes presented to me in the B minor chord that I can use as my notes for soloing over the B minor part? So what's happening is you're paying more specific attention to each of the chords, and that's why it sounds more sophisticated than the one-size-fits-all. So what we're going to do today is take a look at how we're going to do that. Okay, this is a fairly straightforward exercise, and you can add layers to it and make it more complex as you see fit. But the first thing to look at is the chord shapes, and building on what we've done in the first two videos is understanding the scale numbers or scale degrees that are held within that chord shape and what order they come in. So for example, with our first chord, our E, the order of the intervals or the scale degrees is as follows. We've got the 1, the 5, the octave of the 1, the 3, and the 5. So why is that important? Well, in my previous video, it's important because if you start on the 5, for example, and you know your major scale formula, you know that the 5, the next note nearest to the 5 is the 6, and that's 2 frets away. And the note below the 5 is the 4, and that's also 2 frets away. So you've got some options there. If you went up to the 6, you know that the 7 is 2 frets away, and the 1 is 1 fret away from the 7. So that's why knowing the order of the intervals in your chord shape is important. So now let's look at our B minor with its root on the 6th string. So the order of the scale degrees there is the root, or the 1, the 5, octave of the 1, the flat 3, the 5, and the 1. So the important interval in a minor chord is the flat 3, because that is the very specific interval that gives that chord its tonality. It's the note in the chord, or the scale degree in the chord, that makes it sound minor. So you want to emphasize that. In parts of your solo, you want to bring out the minorness of that chord. So that's what we're going to do throughout the whole thing. Just quickly go to the A major, okay? The interval for the A major, the scale degrees across all of the A major chord are exactly the same as in the order for the B minor, apart from it's a major chord. So it will be 1, 5, octave of the 1, 3, not flat 3 because it's a major chord, 5 and 1. So what we're going to do is visualize these chord shapes as we play something. Now, this is what you do anyway before you play a chord. You've learned your chords. Chords are the first thing you ever learn on guitar, probably. And you spent a lot of years playing chords. So chords should be your strongest thing. So visualizing them shouldn't be too tricky. Now, this is what happens in your brain when it's trying to tell your fingers which chord shape to play. Your brain will flash up a picture and say, hey fingers, take a look at this. You need to copy what I remember about the chord shape. And so that's what's happening in your brain. So instead of thinking this is a whole chord shape, you should also be able to separate it into a bunch of separate notes. So that's where we're going to go when we want inspiration for what should I play, what notes can I use. All right, the chord shapes start there. It's always going to sound better. So for our minor, you can play in and around any of that stuff, and similarly here. And some notes in between, not ruling out notes in between. I'm not just saying do the notes in the chord, but if you start with the notes in the chord, that's a fantastic place to start, and you can add other stuff to add a bit more depth to it as you go. So I'm going to be playing out of this shape here, which is, in my book, it's a root 5 major chord shape. You might know it as the A shape of an E in the cage system. Then we're going to move to B minor. I'm also going to be looking at playing notes in and around the 7th to 9th fret in this chord shape. You might know this chord shape as the E shape in the cage system, and the A down here in my book is a major chord with its root on the 6th string. You might also know it as the E shape from the cage system. However you care to remember your chord shapes, what's important is you visualize the chord you're on and your chord you're about to go to grab some of those cool notes. So Okay, so that's what we've been doing. I based all my note choices on the chord shapes. Here we had. So I was starting here, and that's the root. And I know this one is the 5, sorry, this one is a 3. So I know that I could go up to the 4. And below the 3 is the 2. So I could make something that says. So I'm landing eventually on the 3, and the 3 works. So now, this is the 5 of the B minor, and then I went, and this is the 5 of the A. So just play around with the concept. The important thing is you understand, base it around the chord shapes, and try and find other notes. You don't just need to use the notes in the chord, but it's a great place to start. If you have any questions about this particular method, then let me know. If it makes sense, give me a thumbs up. If it doesn't make sense, leave a question or a comment below, and you can download a worksheet to help you start building this up. But if you are getting ready to take it to the next level, this is a really good solid foundation. The next level on from this is you start examining different places on the fretboard to play the same chord instead of just playing out of this chord shape. Here, you would also, and I did in the demo, deviate a little bit and end up with playing around here. So this chord shape here, this one here, obviously the open E. Okay, you could look at this one as well. Whoops, this one here. I believe I got that wrong. And this one up here. So all of those are available to you. It's the same notes, just in different places. So you're going to get different kind of tones and twangs. If you're going down there, that's going to be more twangy, and up here it's going to be more woody and kind of a little less bright sounding. Alright, that's all from me today. If you would like to subscribe, then do so. Hit the notification bell, because I'm actually trying to do about 1 video a week now. Now it's 2021, I need to get my stuff together in a bit more regular fashion. So if you want to hear more from me, please subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified when I release another one. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but just leave a comment. And this is Phil from 15 Minute Guitar Practice saying bye for now. Cheers.